That's us live now. Good evening, folks. Welcome along tonight. We have a very special guest with us tonight. From History and Horror Tours, Lynne Crawford Knight. Hi, Lynne. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So, tell us a bit about History and Horror Tours. We'll kick things straight off.
Well, it was actually my husband Gary started it before I even met him. He got a job doing some storytelling for Market Tours down in Edinburgh, and was interested mostly in the history. It's always kind of been his passion. But he started getting, to do tours down the vaults as well, just to make a bit more money, and that got him into the spookier side of things as well. So he wanted to start doing tours up sort of around the area where he lives, because he was, travelling down to Edinburgh for that. So he started doing tours in Perth and started his own company, and it's kind of the rest is history, as they say. We've gone from that to having 3 haunted location tours and 2 outdoor walking tours, as well as various other events throughout the year.
That's awesome. Yeah, as I said, I've obviously had a look at your website. There's a link in the description for the video as well. But I mean, you cover the basis of what I love: history and the paranormal, and I think they go hand in hand.
Hand in hand. They're perfect for each other.
Yeah. And I was actually watching. I was going to talk about it later, but I'll talk about it now. I was watching your Bankfoot in video earlier. And that was a great EVP that you caught there of the woman's voice.
I caught another one, and then because I'm so stupid with technology, instead of trying to highlight it, I deleted it.
Oops.
It was a man's voice, and I was trying to work out what it said, so I was like, well, listen to it again, and I was like, oh, where's it gone? And I just completely erase it.
Yeah. But no, so check it out on YouTube, guys, because it's a really, really good video. Tells you a good bit about the history at the end as well. And I think
honoured to be there, because the guy knows the owners, and they approached him. One of them believes in the paranormal and thinks the place is haunted. The other doesn't really. So it was kind of almost like a sort of competition between them. And so they asked Gary if we'd be interested in going and staying for a night as their guests with bed and breakfast. We also treated ourselves to a dinner there beforehand, and the food was phenomenal. The whole place is amazing. You should really, if you ever get a chance to stay there, just the decor and everything. At 1 4 in the bed, the TV show. It won its episode of that. So it was just a fantastic experience anyway. And then we got to investigate it, and it was just bizarre, the stuff that happened. I got a rubbish night's sleep because of the noise outside of our door, and there was nobody there.
No, it's absolutely awesome. And actually, I'd watched the video, I thought that's got to go into the list of places to stay.
Absolutely.
Definitely. If it's haunted, I'm there.
The food is so good. The food is amazing.
Yeah, definitely going to try it. Definitely going to try it out. Just a couple of highs from everybody. Lawrence, Eileen at Phantom Seekers.
Hi, Eileen.
Yeah, Richie from the team as well. Mark from New Zealand.
Hi, Mark.
Mark. Helen, I think from the Channel Islands. Helen's coming up to Edinburgh later in the year as well, so that's quite cool. Kyra, Paranormal Path, who we'll have on hopefully sometime very soon as well. Hi, Alfie, Scotland. Yeah, absolutely awesome. So what you mentioned you've got, is it 3 locations?
Yes, at the moment,
exclusive to you guys. Yeah,
we're actually in talks with another 1, possibly 2, but I don't want to say too much because one of them I was only talking to today, so I better be careful. But yes, no, that kind of started because before I met Gary, when he was running the tours in Perth, he was getting a bit sick of the Scottish weather. We don't need to mention it this year, but sort of the rain and the Perth drunks. So he was looking for somewhere warm and dry and away from people to run the tour, and he was just passing Castle Mingus, and he thought that would be good. It had no reputation for being haunted at the time. Nothing, it wasn't in any books or anything like that. And he just went and asked the manager at the time, John Jack, if he'd be up for letting him run his tours there. And John said, well, you can try it. And it just was phenomenal. It was just like, 30, 40 people on a tour sometimes. And it started off just storytelling, dark stories about, the castle and the clan and the area. But so many weird things happened while he was trying to tell stories that he ended up making it a haunted tour, because it was just ridiculous, the things that were happening. And it got to the point where he had to take stories out so that he could talk about some of the spooky things that was happened. So by the time I met him, it had its reputation then of being haunted, and there was a couple of groups just starting to, that was about 2009, there was one or two groups starting to investigate it because they'd seen Gary's advertising. And so, a new location. So it was great because we were able to bring that to the castle, which, for a place that's relying on that kind of money to keep a roof on it and to keep it watertight, because it's not supported by, Historic Scotland or NTS. So it was a great way for them to make some kind of revenue as well. So yeah, it's been a very sort of symbiotic relationship over the years with the castle, and it's kind of grown, and now we do the same at Bannockburn House. It's been a bit more restricted this year because we've had issues with the building and a lot of filming going on, but we'll be doing another one later in the year, I think. And then last year we got approached by Provenhall House down in Glasgow. So that's our newest one, and it's a fantastic location as well. We're just so lucky to have 3 such amazing places to tell our stories in. We don't set anything up. If anything happens, it's nothing to do with us.
The way it should be, definitely. And it's really good to hear locations embracing dark tourism.
Yeah, it's something that we've been kind of shouting about for quite some time. But there's, a lot of places have found it quite hard to take it on board. But, more and more places, Scott has had people consulting him about what we do, and then they've gone and done it too, which is not great for us, but it's fantastic for these locations. It's fantastic that there's a new kind of, interest as well. And for Provenhall House to actually approach us because they'd heard of our reputation, thanks to, I don't know if you know Paul Hannon, and he helps with events. He's one of the volunteers at Bannockburn House, and he's so impressed with the tours that we do at Bannockburn House that it was him that, when he was in a meeting with Provenhall, told them about us, and they were like, yes, we want them. So that was really nice. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you get that, support, I think obviously it shows how good you guys are at what you do. And from reading your kind of latest sort of Facebook posts, you've got more coming up as well. Because are you starting sort of tours, driving around locations, possibly?
Well, we did. We had some guinea pigs over. I think you were entertaining them for a while as well.
Yeah, same ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So our American friends, Rick McCullum, who I had the pleasure of meeting at the beginning of last year, and we've kept in touch, and he agreed to allow him and his party to be our guinea pigs, basically. So we put together a 5-day schedule of events, just to showcase Perthshire and what we've got here, because it does get overlooked, it gets forgotten about, but it's got a phenomenal history, and the best way to bring the history to life is through the dark history and the paranormal. So we put them up in the Bankfoot Inn for a night, which they absolutely loved, and I think they wish they could have had the chance to stay there a bit longer. We took them to Bannockburn House on the way up to Perthshire. We stopped there. And then they stayed in the Salutation Hotel in Perth, which is reputedly haunted by Bonnie Prince Charlie. Somewhere the first time we investigated it was with Ryan O'Neill.
All right, yep.
So yeah, we sort of go way back with that one to, I think it was 2014 we first did that one. And so they stayed a couple of nights in there. They got to investigate there too. They came on our tour of Perth. We managed to get access to the Fair Maid's House in Perth, which was made famous by Sir Walter Scott. And it's now run by the Scottish Geographical Society. So they've also got just fascinating artifacts and information, including artifacts linked to the ship the Terror. I don't know if you saw the TV show. It was, I think, the BBC did a dramatisation of a novel that was based on the Terror because all the crew members went missing from the Endeavour.
Yeah, I know the story. Yeah.
So there's some artifacts here from that, which is pretty cool. And so we've got in there. We took them up to Castle Mingus and showed them around there. What else did we do? I've lost count now. We did so much. We packed a lot into a short couple of days, put it that way.
Yeah, I can tell you, they arrived in Inverness tired, but very excited and very happy with what they'd had for the past 5 days before they got to us. So yeah, they were raving about it. So they really enjoyed it. I know that they really enjoyed it.
It was so much fun because there's such an amazing bunch of people.
Yeah.
You know, they really are a great group of folks. So it made it much easier for our part. We didn't have to sort of pretend with the niceties.
And it's great that somebody's finally doing a dark tourist tour. I mean, I have a friend who is a tour guide. He takes very rich Americans all over Scotland. And he says to me, the first thing they ask whenever they arrive at a location is it haunted? And before COVID hit, we were actually talking about me going out with him a couple of days around Inverness locations. But COVID came along and it never happened. But there's definitely a market out there for it.
Oh, absolutely.
You guys sound like you just, you're perfect for it.
We've owned the domain name Haunted Holidays Scotland for about, 10 years, more, I think. Longer than we've been married, I think. And so we've just never had the time to kind of put it in motion. And my plan was to start thinking about it over with this winter, sort of when we're quieter, and look to try and launch it next year. But then when this opportunity came up with Rick and Kat and Laurie and Mikey and it was just like, well, of course. And Julie, it was just like, well, it would be daft not to use this as the sort of the launch pad, if you like, for it. And we've actually just been contacted just the other day by somebody else who's looking to bring a group of Americans over. So it's there's definitely an appetite for it, and it's a great way to showcase Scotland, which is our big.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. I mean, when we took them around here, and again, we took them to places that a couple of them were Outlander. Julie, being a big Outlander fan, we had to take off Culloden and Clava there, but we let them investigate at Clava, not at Culloden. But I did my ghost walk with them on the first night. We took them to Rake Castle, which is off the beaten track, but is like a great spooky haunted castle. Got a great ghost story. So they loved it. Absolutely loved it. And you're right, there's such an appetite for it.
Yeah, Rake Castle's amazing. Gary takes me on, ever since I met him, he's had this mission to take me on regular jaunts. Partly because he loves sort of researching and taking photographs and writing stories and stuff like that. So we did a jaunt up there to get photos, and he enjoys spooking me because I am a total wuss. I don't go to the toilet at Castle Mingus by myself. And I'm the tour guide. I saying, who needs the toilet? Come with me. So
I was going to say, so who goes to the toilet with you? That was my next question.
Whoever I can drag along. I've even had the castle manager standing out in the corridor waiting for me.
Oh dear.
Yeah, total wimp. Yeah. I'm getting a bit braver now. When I first met Gary, I was like hanging on to him for dear life the first couple of times going around the tour. But I do have good cause because I do have a history with whatever entities is in the castle. Have you ever seen the photo of the handprint that I received?
No, I don't think so.
No, I'll need to send you that so you can put it up. It was when I hadn't long met Gary, and although I'd watched a couple of episodes of Most Haunted, I'd never actually done anything like that before, and generally I'm kind of scared of the dark, which is not helpful. And So Gary took me along. He'd been invited along by a group from Dundee, Paranormal Discovery, and so he was good friends with Katrina, and so we got invited along to join a private investigation with them. And the night before, we'd been doing a private tour for a group of people, which had involved wine. And because I wasn't actually technically working, I had a bit too much wine and got a bit too gallus, I think, and was calling out the spirits of. There's supposed to be 3 redcoat soldiers who haunt the lower part of the castle, and they're not the most pleasant of entities, especially around females. So I was getting a bit gallus and kind of calling them out a wee bit. Anyway, so the next night we went along to do this investigation, and we'd been down in that area, so I was doing sort of usual calling out, trying to get stuff to happen, and just after that we took a break. And as we were leaving the area, I felt myself get punched in the back. I had quite a thick jacket on, and I think I had a duvet around me as well because it was March and it was freezing. And so I said to Guy that, I felt like I got hit in the back. And so when he and the organiser lifted up my jacket, they saw that I had a cross had just been scratched on my back, and it was just starting to bleed. So because it was 2 o'clock in the morning, Guy was like, right, probably a good time to go now. And I was like, yep, that's fine. And as we were leaving, I thought my clothes or my jacket had caught on the door handle and pulled me back. But when I turned around, I realised I was too far away from the door to have actually caught it. But something had pulled me back. So it was a good story. That was fine. That was exciting. I went home, went to bed. But the next morning when I woke up, I had a huge handprint on my stomach.
Ooh.
Bigger, like Gary's hand's about the same size as mine. And it was about twice the size of my hands. It was huge, big, proper, like big man handprint. Sort of embedded in my stomach, and it was there for the whole day. And my sort of my mood changed, and Gary ended up getting. I don't remember much about it. I remember just being a bit of a stroppy teenager kind of feeling. But Gary ended up getting a friend of ours who's sadly passed away now, but he was a medium, and he came down and said that I had an attachment, and it was one of these soldiers, and he wasn't happy about the story we were telling about them on the tour. So we agreed to change our story, well, tell their side of the story as well, in return for him kind of leave me alone. And we always tell their side of the story now.
Oh,
but the cracking photo, it's a photo from an old phone, but you can still see the handprint.
Yeah. What an introduction, though. I can understand why you want someone to go to the toilet with you now.
Yeah, well, you have to pass through that whole corridor to get to toilets, you see.
Right.
And I have a great, my imagination is probably my worst enemy. So after that corridor, you go into sort of what gets called the Victorian part of the castle. So it's much more sort of, it's almost like a labyrinth of passageways to get to the toilet. So at every corner, I keep imagining I'm going to turn the corner and see some like ghost standing there waiting for me, like something out of a film. And my imagination really does go over time.
So is that the scariest encounter you've had?
In some ways, not, because it kind of happened after the fact. I think probably one of my most scariest encounters was at Bannockburn House when we were doing a tour. And the reason it was scary is because I kind of felt almost violated. Like, you're sort of in your personal space and you're not ready for it. And we were doing a tour, and there's a small room which looks quite unassuming, but to me is probably the weirdest, most intimidating atmosphere. Right opposite Bonnie Prince Charlie's room. Have you been to Bannockburn House yet?
No, I haven't been to Bannockburn House. No.
We'll need to get down to Bannockburn House. So so we're in there, and when we're doing a tour, everybody has a battery operated candle because it looks the part, creates an atmosphere. And when we're in that room, because the entity in there is so active and likes to kind of show off, he seems to really sort of like the attention and the energy. So he's always very active in there. So we've got everybody to switch their candles off just to really create that atmosphere, because it's pitch dark. The rooms all have shutters and there's no street lights, and it was like October or something. So just to create an atmosphere, I told everyone to put their candles off. And Gary was with me that night, and he was standing at the far end of the room, and we're all stood there in silence. And then I felt Gary come and stand beside me, and then heard him say something in my ear. And I felt like his head was right there, because I could feel it on my hair. I could feel the vibration in my eardrum, of someone talking, but I couldn't make out what he said. And so I turned around and said, what did you say? And Gary was still over the other side of the room and said, I didn't say anything. And all the people standing in front of me, who were mostly women that night, were all like, we heard that. And so I just still don't know what he said, but it really freaked me out because it was so close. And I don't know, there was just something quite sinister about it. It didn't feel nice at all. Didn't like that.
No.
I
I can understand.
Said, but I don't want him to tell me again. I want him to tell somebody else so I can find out. But I think the other one is up at the castle. There's always been talk of black magic, witchcraft, and all that kind of stuff at Castle Mingus. People talk about there being all kinds of things up there. And when it was sort of in the early days of doing the tours up there was a paranormal team, and while they were setting up after one of our tours, they sort of got in after a tour, so they were setting up, and the medium said to Gary, can we sort of go for a wander and you can show me where the hot spots are and stuff. So that was fine. So they got up to the area that gets known as the attic room of the castle, which is kind of the top floor, and it's really the size of the full castle. It's very long. It's huge. And it's got sort of wooden rafters, very atmospheric, wooden floor. And it's kind of in two sections almost, just the way there's a sort of partial partition, the wall. And there had been a TV crew up there at one point, and they had a table which had a Ouija board kind of inlaid into it as part of the table, and they'd left this table behind. And when the manager said to them, you come to pick this up because I kind of want it out of the way, they said, yeah, we'll come and get it, just leave it where it is. So he left it there, and this medium sort of noticed it, and she turned to Gary and she said, look, I kind of think people are sort of playing and messing with this during the day when they're in visiting, they don't know what they're doing, and they've opened up a portal and they've let in a demon. Now, Gary's attitude at the time was, I don't know if I believe in demons, but that makes a good story for the tour. So he decided that he was going to tell that story anyway, despite his lack of belief in it. And so it wasn't long after that we went up there we would regularly stop at a table and tell the story about it. And while he's telling the stories, I would be shining the torch on it. And this one night, we were just about to, the guy was telling the story, and as soon as he said the word demon, there was a growl. And we all heard it. And I thought, okay, that's a bit different. And then the following week, he stopped to tell the story, and there was an almighty thump underneath his feet on the floor that lifted the floorboards up, and we could all feel the floor going doof underneath him. And it was really freaky because the floor beneath is the room beneath it has got a beautiful plasterwork on the ceiling. There's no way that even as a joke, the manager or anybody else would or could, make the actual floor move. So it carried on the story, moved to the far end of the same room, and just as Gary stopped again to turn around and tell the story, it happened again right under his feet. And that's probably the most freaked out I've ever seen him. And he turned around afterwards when we got home. He's like, I'm close to stopping the tours. That's too much. We don't know what we're messing with. So that was kind of, I think it was actually Gary's reaction that made that even scarier. Anyway, Gary's the opposite of me. He's unshakable usually, and much more skeptical than I am, and much more kind of balanced than I am. So for him to be that freaked out kind of freaked me out a bit too. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm with Gary on that. I'm not a fan of the demon idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's become a bit of a craze now. I think too many things are a demon, but I don't think that means that there isn't such a thing. Although what it is, we've given it the name demon and we've associated it with, biblical lore.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it is or isn't, but I think there is something.
Oh, I mean, you get nasty ghosts. You get nasty ghosts. Look at your redcoats. You know, I always use Adolf Hitler as an example. If Adolf Hitler's a ghost, he's not going to suddenly be a nice ghost.
Well,
You know?
exactly. All the ghosts have spirits have been humans at some point, and there are lovely
Yeah.
humans. There are other humans, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people are just too quick to call demon because of certain paranormal programs from overseas, and I think the same has happened with the whole haunted doll phenomenon. Is kind of out of hand as well. That's my personal feeling, though. I don't want to offend anybody. I think there is such a thing as haunted dolls and haunted objects. I do think it happens. We have our own dodgy artifact ourselves accidentally. I'll get into that later if you want me to. But I think that not every old doll is the haunted, regardless how old or spooky it looks. And I've seen a lot of dolls actually who people claim are haunted, but because I collect old dolls, but I also worked in a Scottish tat shop, like your tartan shops, tourism shops, for a while in Crieff, and we sold sort of porcelain type dolls, and they were made to look old, but they were brand new, and they were wearing their wee tartan bonnets and fancy dresses and everything. And there's a lot of those that I see getting classed as old haunted dolls, and I'm thinking, well, I was selling them about 15 years ago. They're not that old.
Yeah, we did with some of the TAPS groups in England. We used to do some lives, and we did a live on haunted objects, and we spent a few hours with much hilarity on eBay, looking at what was being sold, and the creativity of these sellers to write backstories for these dolls. Amazing, crazy backstories. You know.
We've accidentally collected 2 objects because of what we do. The other aspect of our business, the sort of historical side of storytelling. Gary plays the part of a medieval executioner, and because I'm the girl, I get to be the victim. And we go and do sort of historical reenactment events. So, like every year, we'll be down at Trickware House for the medieval fair, and I'll be getting my head chopped off, and we'll put people in the pillory and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a really interesting collection of objects that if anybody saw it, they'd probably report us to the police. And sort of various forms of torture and punishment from different eras. So 2 of the things we've got, one of them, Gary had it before I met him, and it was a beheading sword, which was actually used. What country was it from, Gary? So he's in the background.
Nepal.
From Nepal. And it was like a sort of curved, sort of almost cutlass shaped.
Yeah.
Sword, and it came in a wooden case. And Gary would have it as decoration on the windowsill in our bedroom, and it always made me feel really uncomfortable. So a friend of ours, Dave Barrett, asked if he could, because we don't actually really use that for our demonstrations because we figured it is too hideous, and it doesn't really have a purpose with it, because it's kind of a 20-minute performance we do, so it doesn't really have a role as a prop, so we don't really take it anywhere. So Dave Barrett asked if he could get a shot of it and investigate it, and we said yep, no problem. And it's now down in Stoke Museum, Haunted Museum down there, which I think we're going to be visiting that at the end of during August. I think we're going down there to do the investigations. That'll be fun. And so yeah, that's kind of safely out the way. But when was it? About 10 years ago, Gary managed to obtain a metal boot. Now I don't know if you know sort of the old form of torture. It was often used in Covenanters to get information. Was known as the boot. It was used quite a lot in Scotland, especially in Edinburgh. It was quite famous. And what this boot would do is this boot would go around the victim's leg and have wedges of wood around the top, and they'd hammer the wedge of wood down, and it would slowly crush the bottom of the leg. And if you still didn't confess or give the information that was wanted, the leg would just become pulp. It would become mush, and you'd sort of never walk again. So most people would talk quite quickly with one of those on their legs. So Gary managed to obtain one of these, which is for 2 feet, and he got it. It was apparently used on an Indian tea plantation for runaway slaves. And when it arrived, Gary put it on the kitchen table, and it was kind of sitting there for a week or two, probably until we tried to work out where we were going to keep it. And the time that it was in the kitchen, the 6 halogen bulbs blew, and in the kitchen, and we were constantly, we'd be sitting watching TV, and we'd constantly hear noise from the kitchen, as if, like, you know, paperwork had been knocked off the table, or things were getting knocked down, and you go through and there was nothing there. So there's definitely seems to be something with that, which I don't think is bad. I think it's just sad. Yeah, I get real sort of sad off it. So I was trying to sort of put out sort of positive healing vibes towards it, because when we're doing demonstrations, I have to stick my foot in that thing. So, and like I said, I'm always
Yeah, Lindsay's saying there she loves these interesting wee artifacts people have. Probably wouldn't want them in her own house, though.
I know. I find it amazing, some of the things that people deliberately collect. It's like, no.
Yeah, it always takes his 1,000 rods into an antique shop to find the ones with the energies attached.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, because yeah, we've come across objects that definitely it's the objects. You know, we've got a haunted doll. It doesn't get up and walk off or anything like that. In fact, I think now that it's back in Scotland, it's at peace and there's no problem at all. But yeah, we've definitely had things where we've gone to locations and people have handed us things, and we've had, you know, people who've been sensitive in the team react when they've held it in their hands. So yeah, totally believe it. And the trauma, and as you say, the sadness with some of these items, it must leave an imprint.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it must do.
Yeah.
I mean, that boot might not have directly killed anybody. It might have, but not sort of directly die in the boot. But you know, there's pain and suffering that it caused, and the circumstances that it was used in is horrific. You know, absolutely horrific.
Yeah, the fear as well. I mean, just I'm quite sure that the fear of it.
Yeah, because you've got that anticipation, and there's a whole build up to it. It's not just a quick you drop your head off. It's yeah. So we're very respectful of it, though. We treat it with a lot of respect and kind of warmth towards it. But it does sit in our bedroom, and we do have weird things happen in our bedroom. We don't know if it's this house because it is an old house, or if it's the boot, or both. I don't know. I once woke up with a rucksack getting thrown on top of me from the top of the wardrobe. That was an interesting one. But yeah.
Yeah. Psychometry, interesting subject. Yeah. I mean, I always do wonder about these haunted museums and people who collect haunted dolls. I've said this before. To me, all I see is Ghostbusters, and you know, when the big green cloud goes up into the sky. If you've got that much haunted objects in a property, it's going to be the activity is going to be off the chart.
I genuinely have concern for people's health, physical and mental health, when they're around these things a lot as well, or in these places a lot. You know, I think a lot of people sort of forget to look after themselves when they get so wrapped up in the paranormal, or confident. Sometimes people just get a bit overconfident, and I think that you do have to be careful of the energies. When we first started doing the castle tour together, we were finding ourselves bickering over some really stupid stuff on the day of a tour. And like, we'd be doing the tour that night, and for some reason we'd end up, I don't even know what we're arguing about, because we don't really argue much, and we got on really well. I quite like them. And we would bicker over silly stuff and be really headachy and stuff like that. And we kind of worked out that we should maybe be protecting ourselves before we go up there on the day of a tour, instead of when we get there. And we know, like, I would notice if Gary had forgotten to protect himself during that day, and I would say, "Have you done it?" And he was like, "Oh no, I forgot," you know, because it did sort of affect our moods and stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen that myself in certain locations, and that, though with me it tends to happen suddenly. Yeah, very suddenly. Yeah, Stefan said once found a dagger with the Thousand Rods. It turned out to be a World War One trench dagger used by the British Army. A nasty feel to it, tasted possibly quite a bit of blood and anger.
Wow, that's an amazing find.
Yeah, Lindsay saying.
Gary could be jealous of that. He loves military history.
Yeah, protection is very important. Yeah, Lindsay's saying that is. I got into trouble at the last one of the events we did earlier in the year where something basically drained me. And when your guests are telling you you need to leave the room, you know you're in trouble.
Oops. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is very, very. And setting your intentions as well. And I was going to ask that as well, because you guys are obviously you're going back to the same locations over and over. You're telling the same kind of stories. You've already said that you started telling both sides of the Redcoat story. We always find that the more you go back to a place, the more familiar spirit are with you. Do you think that?
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, I think the castle definitely has a personality, and you can tell when it does or doesn't accept people, I think. And some people fall in love with the place straight away and we can't get enough of it, and other people are just like, no, I don't like it here. And I think we've kind of finally been accepted. I don't know if liked is maybe too strong a word, but I think we've certainly been accepted by the castle. I think we've tried to explain that what we're doing is to try and help look after the castle, because we care about the place. It means an awful lot to us. Gary proposed to me there, and so it's a really important place to us. It's very special, and by going back time and time again, not only are they familiar with us, but we get more familiar with them. So you start to understand, like, especially I'm really fortunate because when Gary and I are both doing a tour together, he does most of the talking. I'm just kind of there for health and safety, really, so make sure everyone's okay. And so I have the luxury of being able to just stand and listen and look for guys working. And so I can pick up an awful lot more than anybody else is experiencing. I don't say too much because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to make them believe that there's something there. I try and wait for them to react before I say anything. I don't want it to look put on, because we want everyone to have a 100% authentic experience as much as possible. If something happens, great, and so I get to listen. So I hear the subtle footsteps, the voices echoing up the stairs. I see the shadows moving. I know where to look and at what points to listen for these things now as well. But one of the fantastic things is that we've been doing the tours at the castle on and off. Well, I've been doing them with Gary since 2009, 2010, on and off. So it's the best investigation you could ever do. It's like going around these places with different people. From all over the world with all different beliefs, some of them complete skeptics, and other people mediums or claiming to be mediums, just all types of people. And for all these people to have the same experiences as each other in the same place, in the same rooms, is fascinating. I'd love to see a skeptic explain that, because they don't know each other, they've not spoken to each other. Often it happens before we've said anything, because again, we try not to plant any ideas in people's heads. We're there to tell stories about the history and stuff. And so for people to, all have the same experience in a room, or the same feeling in a room, or smell the same thing in a room, is just amazing, absolutely amazing. And very confirming for me personally in my beliefs.
Yeah, it is special. And seeing a skeptic changing from being a skeptic to believer in the blink of an eye is special as well. We've had a few like that. One gentleman who I actually used to work with, and who was an ex-RAF officer, didn't believe in any of that nonsense, as it were. And the medium told him, "You've got a black Labrador dog standing beside you." And I just saw the tears welling up in his eyes.
Oh,
And it was his dog. It passed 9 months earlier. He says, "Yeah, he never leaves my side." And she said, "Well,
oh.
never leaves your side." So yeah.
I have to be careful that I don't give away too many stories from the castle, otherwise I'm going to start getting dirty looks from Gary over there. But one of my favourite stories that Gary tells on the tour actually is about something that happened before I joined him. And there was one night he was doing a tour, and it was a family on the tour. So it was like your mum, dad, 2 kids on this tour. And the dad all made it very clear from the beginning he does not believe in this nonsense. He doesn't want to be there. He would rather playing golf than or doing anything else other than doing our tour, and was quite rude about it actually. And but the reason that he was there is because the family were taking a turn each day to choose an activity, and this was his wife's choice, I think it was. And so he had to just lump it and be there. But he made it very clear that he wasn't impressed. He wasn't happy. He grumbled all the way around, tutting and stuff that Gary was saying and that. And it got to the point that by the time they were up in the attic room, which is the last room that we tell stories in, his family were kind of disowning him. They completely distanced himself from him and were standing at the opposite side of the group than him. He was kind of standing out in a limb by himself. And Gary was just, standing, telling the stories, and all of a sudden the man screamed a proper feminine scream. And was like, "This shouldn't happen." He ran over beside his wife, was like totally freaked out. "Can't happen to me. This is a load of nonsense. Look crap, don't believe it, blah, 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 blah." And Gary had to calm him down and take him back downstairs to the kitchen and calm him down enough to find out what had actually happened. And he said that he felt a child's hand hold his hand. It was just this cold little hand went into his, and he was completely freaked out. It took about 20 minutes to calm him down before he could drive home again.
Wow.
And that happened before the point in the tour when we tell the group about the ghost of the small boy who likes to hold people's hands. So
Brilliant.
very satisfying, I think.
Very satisfying. Yeah. And even better that you witnessed it. Well, Gary witnessed it himself as well. Yeah, it just makes it even more.
I think Gary's sympathy for the guy was very limited considering the guy's behaviour throughout the tour.
I can imagine. I've had a few of them. Yeah, I've had a few of them over the years, and they're not fun to deal with.
No,
but that's proper karma. That
yes. And we think. I mean, I believe that I'm very familiar with this wee boy now, and I believe that he deliberately did that. Sorry, that's the guard dog who thinks she's big, but she's not. Yes. I think that he purely did that out of mischief.
Yeah, brilliant.
I really believe he did, because he's quite a cheeky wee monkey.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So I must ask, what tours and events have you got coming up?
Well, we have we've just kind of launched for the year. So every Wednesday night we have our haunted castle tour at Castle Mingus. We have on Thursday nights and Saturday nights we have our walking tour of Dunkeld, our history and horror tour of Dunkeld, which does end, although it's not a ghost tour, it does end with a couple of spooky tales. And the area that we've ended it in, we've actually, a couple of people have seen something weird happen there. So we do believe that the area might be haunted. Just pure fluke. It just happened. We have, on Friday nights, we have our history and horror tour of Perth, which again is a walking tour, and it finishes off in Greyfriars Graveyard, not the Edinburgh one, the Perth one. That would be a long walk. And as well, we've had a couple of really weird things happen there, sort of shadow figures have been seen, stuff like that. It's an interesting place. So they're sort of our main regular tours, but we the last Thursday of every month we have our Proven Hall tour, so tickets are on sale for that. And this month we've got a very exciting thing happening. On the 27th of July, we're running an investigation at Castle Mingus. Tickets are available on our website. And the reason this is so special, we've done investigation events there before, but we're very excited because we've had really strange experiences with light phenomena. The first time it happened was way back about 11 years ago, and we're doing a tour, and an orb the size of bigger than a basketball came down the room, danced above everybody's heads, and just disappeared. Now, we watched this with no cameras, no videos, nothing. It was like with our bare eyes we watched this.
Proper orb.
40 people saw it, except Gary, because he was too busy looking at the people that were screaming, so he missed it. Now, that was one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. It's very, very experienced. And about 11 years later was when we sort of were back in the castle. We'd had a bit of a break. There was a change of management for a while, and we couldn't really work with them. But then Scott took over, and he's been fantastic. So we've been back at the castle again. And so the first year we went back, we were up in the same room, in the attic room. We had a group, and all of a sudden, all these orbs started flying about. There were various sizes, but roughly about tennis ball size. But there was a variety of them. We were all watching them, just going past us. I got my phone out to try and take a picture. And as I lifted the phone up, one went between me and the phone, as if to say, hi,
Wow.
you can't catch me, right? It was incredible. And the following morning, I went on Facebook, and when you get Facebook memories pop up, and it turned out that it happened on the same, like exactly 11 years after the first big orb that we saw.
Oh, that's not a coincidence.
I turned around, I was talking to Gary and Scott a couple of days later when we were up there, and I was like, what is it the anniversary of? Like, what happened to do with the castle that the castle was involved in, or the clan on this date? And it turns out it was the Battle of Killiecrankie.
Wow.
Was fought nearby. It was for those that don't know, it was one of the sort of earlier, from the first uprising Jacobite battle. It was the battle where Bonnie Dundee, who was leading the Jacobites at the time, he was shot with a musket ball and died on the battlefield. But it was an absolute sort of massacre of redcoats. It's the redcoats didn't have a chance because of the way the battlefield was. The Jacobites were able just to sort of charge and completely bombarded them. It's said that the river was like red with blood, flowed red with blood, because of the amount of blood that was spilt. So, I mean, it's quite a interesting place in itself, and it's got its own ghost stories linked with the battle. And but some of the redcoat soldiers retreated to Castle Mingus after the battle.
Right.
Because at that time, I mean, like a lot of clans, the clans, like their allegiance would change depending on who's looking like winning. So at that point, the allegiance was with the redcoats and the government troops. Excuse me. And so the redcoats retreated to the castle to, lick their wounds, gather their strength, whatever they were doing. There was probably a lot of fear and emotions, linked with that. And it's possible people could have died from their wounds there, who knows? But certainly they would have been grieving, their own comrades, family possibly, who had fallen, and getting over the trauma of that battle. And so this coincides. So, long story short, we've managed to get the investigation on the anniversary of the Battle of Killiecrankie, which I've been wanting to do for so long, and it's happening on a Saturday, so we can do it.
Awesome.
So we're really excited about this. Eileen was joining us, Eileen Murray, from who's already said hello.
Yeah, she mentioned that she was going to the castle earlier. Yeah,
joining us with that. So yeah, the tickets are on sale now. Or we've sort of limited the amount of tickets this time, so you need to buy them quick. But it should be hopefully, I don't like to hype it up in case nothing happens, but it should be a good investigation.
I think no matter what happens, it'll be an awesome night. It sounds like an amazing location.
It's a shame you can't make it. You have to come. Come join us.
I'll need to come down at some point, definitely. Yeah, look forward to hearing. Yeah, Eileen saying that will be fab.
It will, Eileen. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that's Lindsay mentioned there, and similar experience at Ruthven Barracks last year where they saw a light anomaly, and obviously Ruthven Barracks was burnt down by the Jacobites.
Yeah,
It was a redcoats barracks. It was burnt down with Jacobites. It's where the Jacobites regrouped after Culloden and got the message to basically each man for themselves. So there's a lot of energies there as well, but Jacobites again.
Well, we've got personal kind of fascination with the Jacobites. Gary sort of specialises in that part of history, and is a Jacobite storyteller as well. Is one of the other things he does. He dresses as a Jacobite and plays his character Donald Whiteman, who's one of the officers in the Jacobite army, and tells the story of the Jacobites uprising and the march down to Derby and everything. But what a lot of people don't know, and I keep nagging him to write his book, is that Gary was the first person to march from Glenfinnan down to Derby wearing Jacobite gear and in the same timeline and the same route as the Jacobites did.
Wow. Can't think there's many people done that.
Nope. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure someone else will do it. That's why I keep nagging him to hurry up and write a book about it.
I love Jacobite history. I mean, it's an area it's always fascinated me since a child. Obviously, we got Culloden battlefield on our doorstep here.
Oh, exactly. You're immersed in it, aren't you?
Yeah, so it kind of comes naturally. But yeah, he needs to get that book written.
Oh,
definitely.
where we live, we're right on the edge of Sheriff Muir.
Right.
So there was another Jacobite battle. And after that battle, it was kind of a bit of a draw because one side, it was such a wide battlefield that on one side the government won and on the other side the Jacobites won. So it was kind of a draw. After it, the government troops retreated sort of south back down towards sort of Stirling. Jacobites had their foothold in Perth, so they retreated back to Perth. But they wanted to slow down the approach of the government troops, so they burned down all the villages and the hamlets in between to make sure there was no, because it was winter, it was January, so to make sure there was no food or shelter and slow down the redcoats. And so our village is one of the ones that was burnt down by the Jacobites, which gives us a bit of a torn loyalty. But the house next door to us is the only one that wasn't burnt down because it was a Jacobite who lived in it at the time.
Yeah,
so it's
fascinating.
Village. But, yeah, I think that's why there's activity in our house, because our house, we're on the original street in the village, so right. It's one of the, it's on the foot. It'll be built in the footprint of the house that was here before that got burnt down.
Yeah, because quite a few of the graveyards, there's a couple of old graveyards in Inverness, they've been vandalised by Jacobites.
Oh, really?
So Jacobites went in and they vandalised the graves of Hanoverian families.
Wow. I can understand why, because I mean, up where you are is where people, after Culloden, the people up there suffered the most.
Oh yeah, well we've got the executions in the other graveyard that took place.
Cumberland.
Yeah, so it's something that when I do my ghost walk, there's a lot of Jacobite in it because there's a lot happened.
Yeah. Exactly. It's such a big part of Scottish history, and well, the history of Scotland and England. It wasn't a Scots versus English thing. It was it was more sort of to do with who you wanted on the throne and which religion they wanted on the throne. People sort of forget that, but it was massive, and the impact was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, it was Scot against Scot, and that's what I tell people. I mean, it really was. Scot against Scot. It wasn't England. I'm always scolding people off who say it was an England-Scotland thing, because no, it wasn't.
But I mean, it's a bit like anywhere where there's been any kind of sort of similar sort of civil war, if you like, England as well, where it's been sometimes family members against family members or neighbours versus neighbours, and the trauma that must cause and the energy that must create. It's no wonder that, you know, that there's so many ghost stories relating to that era.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, Bonnie Prince Charlie's supposed to haunt so many places. He must be absolutely shattered in the afterlife. He must be exhausted. He's said to haunt Castle Mingus. His death mask's there. He stayed there on his way to Clawdon. Is that right, Gary? Yep, just making sure, because I keep getting corrected about my history. He's the historian, I'm the spooky one. So I get corrected. But yeah, so he stayed at Castle Mingus on his way to Culloden. I think he quite enjoyed his stay because the clan chief was away to go and tell the government troops that he was there. But meanwhile, his wife, who was quite a big fan of his, was there to see him for a couple of nights. So, so I think he quite enjoyed Castle Mingus. So he's supposed to be lingering there, but his death mask is on display at Castle Mingus, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I'm quite sure we did. Sorry, Lynn. I'm quite sure we did a competition one year, and we asked people to guess how many locations in Scotland Bonnie Prince Charlie haunted. I can't remember the number now, but I did go and look it up.
Oh,
and it's crazy.
I mean, I don't know how many locations up where you are. It must be, but
every second house.
It's there, the Salutation Hotel, but I actually kind of believe that one. But yeah, but I mean, I've got a bit of a theory. If you look at sorry, I can't speak. It's too late at night. Shamanic beliefs. Gary's cousin, she was sort of telling me more about shamanism because she's sort of been studying it, and it's fascinating, this idea of soul retrieval. Have you heard of that?
A little, yeah, not in great detail though.
So it's believed that when a trauma happens to you, you leave a little bit of your soul behind. It kind of shatters off a bit of your soul. And so the soul retrieval journey with shamanism is when somebody will sort of go on this soul retrieval journey to get back bits of their soul, and it's, you know, to help sort of trauma and mental health, and it's supposed to be sort of really good for you. And so it makes you wonder that if Bonnie Prince Charlie is supposed to be in all these places, maybe it's because he left a little bit behind at each of these places. I wonder if it's something to do with that, because there's also a theory that there's sort of similar theory that wherever you've been, where it has maybe meant something to you, it could be like, you know, your childhood home that you loved, or, you know, something that's meant something to you. You leave a bit of yourself there as well.
Yeah, well, we certainly believe that the spirits we've encountered on locations, 99% of them are there because they enjoyed being there in life. That's the reason they're there now. They visit now, and it's because actually they love the place in life, and they're just coming back. You know,
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's like, you know, when people talk about haunted graveyards, I think very few graveyards are actually haunted, because who would want to go and hang about there in the afterlife?
exactly.
You'd much rather be at home, or, you know, sort of where you got married, or, you know, wherever, but somewhere better than that. I think there are exceptions because of whatever's happened in the graveyard, but I think sort of generally, I think a lot of that was, you know, the body snatchers, grave robbers making up stories to keep people out of the graveyards.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's what sort of created this, you know, belief that, you know, all graveyards are haunted.
Yeah, and there's Helen with a very good point as well. Some don't know that they've passed.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, and that's something that we've started to integrate more into our calling out sessions as well. Is, you know, can you see us? Where are you right now? You know, and are you in your bedroom? Yes, I'm in my bedroom.
But that then crosses over into that totally mind-blowing idea that, you know, perhaps it's neither of us are ghosts, or both are ghosts, because
Yes,
time isn't straight.
time swaps,
You know,
basically.
the guy talks about the tours, is that, you know, time is, we've given it a straight line with a beginning and end, but who's to say it doesn't touch occasionally, and you get this glimpse. You know, Gary's got some great stories where it sounds just like that. You know, they're both the ghost and the now person have seen each other as a ghost.
Yeah.
It does seem to happen. So I think it's a fascinating. I don't think there's one answer. I think there's so many different things that we don't understand and don't know about.
Yeah, there's Scott saying some spirits.
Hauntings.
Yeah, And it's quite right. Yeah, some spirits hang around graveyards to look after family members that are there, that eat from investigating. So yeah, there's so many theories, and that's what makes it so fascinating, as you said, isn't it? It's just it's mind blowing.
But it's
And
also it's social history, even because of what we do. We have people like yourself. You get people on the tours who don't believe in ghosts or aren't really interested in that kind of stuff. They're there for the history, and vice versa sometimes. But it's well, firstly, it's a great way to bring history to life. But if when people do sort of are quite skeptical, well, I sort of say to them, well, it's social history. It's just time immemorial. We've all sat around campfires and told ghost stories, going right back through the centuries.
Yeah.
We've sat and told stories of the supernatural and fairy folk, and goodness knows what else. All these stories that get passed on. So even if you don't believe in it, it's still a vital piece of our heritage, and our history. And all countries have their own, stories and lore and beliefs. And it just makes life richer, I think.
Yeah, and it's really cool, people like yourselves are doing that, because if not, these stories are going to be lost.
Well, exactly. That's one of the joys of being a storyteller, I suppose. I've also hearing other people's stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll be doing sort of storytelling in maybe a hotel, and so it's a captive audience of people who are there on holiday, and they've got a storyteller. I know we're going to have a couple of drinks in the bar and listen to that. And the amount of people, when you go around talking to people afterwards, and the amount of folk, especially men, by the way, sorry to be a bit sexist, but the amount of folk that turn around and say, I don't believe in ghosts, but, and then they tell you this most amazing, phenomenal thing that's happened to them. That's the best ghost story you've ever heard. And so many people have these tales, and you can't help but ask, well, if all these people have these stories, then surely that in itself is a form of scientific proof, because you have to disprove it, which they've not been able to do either, because so many people have witnessed things.
Yeah, it's all theories, isn't it? And you're 100% correct. It's like science can only tell us what science knows. So yeah, science can answer some of the questions, like why we see faces in photographs of rocks and flames and fires and things like that. That's the way our brain. But at the same time, it's just you get people coming to you, complete strangers, telling you stories they've had, and then what's even better is and I'm pretty sure you guys have probably had this as well, where you've had two people independently, they don't know each other, and have had the same experience at the same location, because we've had that, and it gives me goosebumps every time.
Yeah, every time somebody says something, I just smile and go, "Yep, that's what happens here."
Yeah.
And we just love collecting the stories. We've actually created. I don't know if you've. I don't know if you're. I think you might be on it. We created a page, Haunted Perthshire, on Facebook just recently, but it's grown so fast. I couldn't believe it. We wanted to collect stories, to talk to people, because sort of guys in the process of creating a book about it. I probably shouldn't say anything, but early advertising, and so just as a way to sort of collect stories and collaborate. But through that, it's you yourself, and in our world, it's a community.
Yeah.
So it's bringing people together as well. So because of that, we decided to start up. We've just started up another one. I think it's Scottish Ghosts. We've called it. Is that what we called it? That's what we called it. We sat for ages trying to work out a name for it, because we don't want to say Haunted Scotland, because there's already sort of Haunted Scotland. So we had to try and come up with another name that nobody else has thought of. But yeah, I think it's Scottish Ghosts, and so we've just kind of just launched it. Not done very much with it, because the Haunted Perthshire one's been so busy. But yeah, we just love hearing stories and telling stories, and passing on the stories. And we've had people on the Haunted Perthshire page now talk about their own experiences, and then someone else will come on and say, yeah, I used to work there and that used to happen to me, and so It's a fantastic subject and a great community to be part of as well.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, what we started doing is every Tuesday we publish a ghost story. So it may come from an old book, but it's just trying to get it back out there again. And the reaction we got to one in particular was just crazy, and that was the 1930s Austin car that's seen on Sky. The amount of people who commented on that saying that they knew somebody who'd seen it or they'd seen it themselves. And this is still happening to this day. People are still seeing this car. It was just crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It just went exploded. As
That's my big fear, though. My biggest fear is haunted roads. You think there's anything more scary than driving on your own at night in the dark and a blooming ghost pops out in front of you? You look in your mirror and it's sitting in the back seat. That's nightmare fuel. It's like, that's my biggest fear. Almost as bad as spiders.
I have a story from a friend of mine who's a taxi driver who had something very similar happen to him.
Oh.
I haven't shared the story yet. I'm going to speak to him and see if he's happy for me to share the story. But he has a story which basically was somebody sitting in the back of his taxi.
Oh no, that is nightmare fuel. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. We've talked about it.
Sorry.
Terrifying though. Do you not think you're on your own in the car with this, whatever it is? Oh, that sounds horrible.
As we always say, the living are more scary than the dead.
Well, I don't know.
No, yeah. Trust me, the living are more scary than the dead.
Yeah. No, because like driving at night, I have to, especially if I've been doing investigations. Often I do investigations at Castle by myself because up until recently, Gary used to work weekends, so he'd often be working on the Sundays. So it was just me driving back over the Scottish Highlands through the hills on these tiny wee roads by myself at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just, it was just horrible. I just keep picturing some wraith at the side of the road. No, can't do it. But I have family down in Castle Douglas and down from Dumfries and Galloway, and I go and visit them regularly. I enjoy going to see them. And there was one time I was going down. It was the first time after passing my test that I drove down myself, and I had my youngest with me in the car. I think he was probably about 9 at the time, and maybe slightly young, but he'd started watching YouTube videos about sort of doing, all the sort of the ghost, well, I say ghost hunters, some of them pretended ghost hunters, but he started watching all that sort of stuff. And we got to Dumfries and we were sort of going round the roundabout, taking the turn off that I needed, and he pipes up, "Oh, Mum, this is the most haunted road in Scotland. I watched a YouTube video about it." And this was at like 10 o'clock at night. I was just like, no, you're now my least favourite child. Thank you very much.
You really are in the wrong job.
The whole drive, I spent 30 minutes driving going, please don't jump out of me. Please don't jump out of me. Please don't jump out of me. And the music up and everything. Oh.
Yeah. There's Lindsay saying she had someone in the back of the car one night coming out the back road from there near Codder.
Lindsay, how do you not need therapy after that?
It's only hitching apparently from one farm to another.
Oh, lovely. We've felt something in the back of the car. It was one of the things that led us to protecting ourselves at the castle more, is because there's definitely, I think there's something that will, if it can hitch a lift, it will. And there's been times when we've been leaving the castle and driving back and we've felt a chill, that chill behind you.
Mm-hmm.
The car heater's on, it's warm, but there's a chill behind you and you have felt something behind us. But it's been both of us at the same time and we just tell it to, sod off, and usually it does kind of go away. But yeah, I would hate to see something.
Yeah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry. Don't have nightmares, but it's going to happen.
Well, I think they deliberately pranked me. Honestly,
I think Helen said it earlier in one of the comments that they I think they kind of do. I think if they had a sense of humor in life, they've got a sense of humor now, and I don't think a majority of them are malicious, but they get a laugh out of scaring people.
Well, when I was with Julie, Mikey, and Kat Dobson Rick wasn't feeling great, so he didn't join us that night. Oh, Laurie was there as well. She did join us. And we got the chance to investigate the room that Bonnie Prince Charlie's supposed to haunt at Salutation Hotel that night, where they were staying. And they were doing the Estes method. Now, I've never done it because I'm terrified of I don't like the idea of seeing or hearing something that nobody else can see or hear. You know, I want it to be a group experience. I don't want it to just be me, right? I don't know why, but that's what terrifies me. So I've never done it. And Mikey and Kat were kind of trying to pursue me to do it. And I was like, no, I'm a total waste. I'm too scared. And then eventually, because it was a kind of a nice vibe, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. But I was nervous. And I was like, you know, I said to Mikey as he was putting the headphones on me, you know, I am nervous. So headphones went on me and there was silence. And then all of a sudden, whoa, in my ear, and then laughter. Because whatever it was made me jump the height of myself. I just about went into orbit, seriously, right? Because I got such a fright with this whoa in my ears. And then I just got ha 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 afterwards. And I was like, you buggers.
Yeah,
Honestly, I swear that's what they were doing.
definitely.
I swear that's what they were doing. But it did actually put me a bit more at ease after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't impressed.
It's a privilege. I always look at it as it is a privilege to make contact.
Oh yeah.
And I think
And, when we talk about, you know, bringing history to life, one of the things that I say is that if you think you're making contact with, I don't know, a clan chief from 500 years ago, or whatever, that's the closest thing you're going to have to being in the TARDIS. You know, that's the closest thing to being a time machine.
Yeah.
One of the bits of feedback that we get from people who've been on one of our events, especially our haunted location events, because there's a wee bit of ghost hunt involved, we make it interactive so people get to use equipment as we're going around and telling stories. We take EMF meters and stuff. And you know, one of the things that bits of feedback is that, well, wish history was like this at school. But also, just because people think that, you know, if this character that we think we're maybe making contact with, say like at Castle Mingus, there's a clan chief, so Robert Mingus, who in the room that he's in, he feels that women shouldn't really be in there. It's a very male-dominated room. That's his room where he'd like to, you know, retire after a meal. But he's nice enough. But you know, he's got quite a dry sense of humour. And so you know yourself. Sometimes you actually get the character through. You get a bit of a rapport. You get yes or no questions. You get answers and stuff like that. And this is something we do with the group. And the amount of people that afterwards are like saying that it's amazing because you might read about him in a book or on a page, and it's kind of meaningless. But all of a sudden, it brings this character to life, and it's no longer just a name in a history book. It's a person, it's a human. And you know, it makes all these characters human. I hadn't actually thought about it that way until she said this, and she was really quite emotional about it. She was only there because her kids wanted to do it, but she couldn't get over that kind of feeling of, you know, all of a sudden, you know, history is feeling relevant. You know, the people from our history feeling relevant.
Yeah, we've got a gentleman at Durn House in Portsoy. He's a Jacobite, Bert. He was the kind of main servant in the house to the lord of the house. Who they were at Culloden. They were part of the 45. Got them in the book. Bert likes young redheads. He will spend all his time with redheaded ladies. He's quite happy. You give the rods to a young lady with red hair, and the rods will work for as long as you want. One night, we didn't see Bert at all in my group, and halfway through, Lynn, who was taking other, had Bert tonight? Not at all. That's because he's with us. And that was what it was. So yeah, it's great because you're getting that kind of character. And we asked him, Bert, do you like the ladies? Yeah. He told us, yes, he likes the ladies. So, you know, it's a privilege.
I asked Sir Robert Mingus if women should only be in that room to clean, and it said yes.
Ouch.
I don't know if you find this, but you know, when you're doing these things, there is a lot of misogyny.
Lindsay, who's on tonight,
problematic.
Lindsay gets a lot of that. Lindsay's one of our mediums, and in a lot of cases, she'll have a man who does not want to speak to a woman, will not speak to a woman, and
I think it's especially if it's a confident woman.
yeah,
You know, or
um,
you know, when I'm leading a tour, I'm the boss.
yeah.
And I don't think that sits very well sometimes.
Well, Lindsay's a boss as well, so yeah, Lindsay's a boss lady, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They don't like strong characters. On the flip side of that as well, I've seen men being affected by female spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I've been affected on a couple of occasions by female spirits. The worst I've had with regards to a mass exodus of men was at Strathpeffer Pavilion, where there was, I think, 7 women, 4 men. All 4 of us had to leave the building
Really?
because we were headaches, nausea. The women were fine. And I had already had that when I did a walk round of the location previously in the same area. I'd gone back up later that night and was fine. And even on the night when the 4 of us had to leave for 10 minutes and go outside, at the end of the evening, I went up to film down into the main hall area up there myself, and I was fine. But it just was so weird. 4 of us had to leave.
That's amazing. Is there any sort of relevant known history linked to it?
Nothing that we can
Find.
really find that would suggest who, but it seems to be a female spirit, and she does not like men.
Wow. Yeah, no, you do get, but then again, you look at the way a lot of women in history have been treated, it's no wonder.
Ah, yeah, well, exactly.
You know, we've done a few investigations now down at Applebank in Lark Hall with Dave Barrett. We've been helping him out with events, and it's got a fascinating history. There's the black lady, she gets called, who was the wife of a sea captain who, you know, when he came back from his travels, brought this very exotic Indian lady back with him, Sita, who's very beautiful. But her life seems to have been quite sort of miserable and isolated, and then she suddenly vanished and went missing.
Oh.
Many people think at the hands of him, and it's believed that she was buried. Don't know if it was buried alive or buried dead, but she was like buried under the floor of the cellars of the house, which has now been knocked down and flattened. But the house that was nearby where the Applebank Inn, and the Applebank Inn has got the lintel from the door is now in the wall, and one of the doors as well is a feature at the Applebank Inn. And we've certainly had her. I've had her a lot on the using dowsing rods. She comes through very quickly with me, and again, I think it's that you know, she can relate to a woman. You know, and I'm quite empathic and quite sympathetic, and you know, I've had my fair share of numpties in the past as well and experiences. So, you know, we do seem to connect. She feels, I think it's like she feels it's safe to to communicate with me, and it's quite emotional. It's quite fascinating that she can do that because, and now we've been back a few times. She's been much more open communicating with the men in the group as well now. Which has been really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah. So again, it's that building up a trust, isn't it? An understanding. You know, one of the questions we sometimes ask is, you know, are you happy to talk with us? Are we the first people that have come and spoken to you in a long time? And you know, with the rods and things like that, we do a lot of that, and you often get a yes, and they're happy. Normally, they're happy for us to speak with them. Occasionally, get one no, don't want to speak to you. Or the other ones that we've had recently at Rake Castle, we've had a couple of times now actually. And when the guys we took the guys there the other week as well. We had a female spirit, but she was scared of her father. So she was very reluctant to communicate with us for that reason. We managed to kind of get that as much out of her as that. And when he came through again, he was more, didn't really want to speak to the women. So yeah, really, really fascinating. Absolutely. But listen, I've kept you longer than we were going to run tonight. It's been absolutely fascinating, and we will definitely need to get you back on again.
Tell you it's hot for Scotland, didn't it?
You can talk for Scotland, but it's been absolutely brilliant. Before we say our goodbyes, if folk are wanting to book events with you, where do they go?
We have our website, our lovely new website, historyandhorrortours.com. You can find us on Facebook as well, and we're on Instagram, on Threads, but I don't use it very much. But yeah, History and Horror Tours. Thoroughly recommend anybody that's interested in even just trying an investigation for the first time, come along on the 27th of July. It's only in a couple of weeks. There's still tickets there. Like I said, it's limited tickets, so that's one of the reasons we sort of left it a bit later to sell them, because it was all kind of last minute, and it's like, so it's very exciting. But yeah, come along, join us, and hopefully we get to get you down here sometime. We're looking forward to trying to get up and join you up.
Yeah, if you get up here, you'd let us know, and definitely we'll take you around a few places and whatnot as well. But yeah, definitely want to do
been up there. So that'd be fantastic. Definitely.
Okay. So we will post some links tomorrow. As I said, there's a link in the description on this video as well. Thank you so much, Lynne, for coming on. As I said, it's been fascinating. Definitely get you on again. Good luck with the tours and the new venture, and keep us in the loop, and we will be happy to post for you whatever you need us to post. Excellent. So thanks to everybody who's joined. Yeah, thanks to everyone who's joined us tonight, and we'll see you all soon. Night night.
Night,
bye.
Folks.